Figlio mio, figlio mio. Facciamo le mani, Don Ciccio. Don Ciccio, ma ammazzasti a mio marito, perché non si posi calare. Eppure un figlio mio d'anni, Paolo, perché avevi giurato vinnita. Ma Vito, avevi solo 9 anni ed è fissa. E poi avevo cuzzanica.
Io non mi scando di parole, sai.
Ma un figlio mio è sicco. Iddu, con sciusciuna batte.
E se quando cresce forte?
Ossia non si scanta. Sto piccirino non ci può fare niente.
Quando è grande, se ne viene per fare pennetta.
Per piacere, Don Ciccio. Sparagnatemi, sto figlio mio. Tengo solo a chisto. O signoruzzo mio, vi giuro che non fa niente, o signoria. Non sparagnassi.
No.
Vita, attenti! Mi si muove ammazzo!
Fermi!
Vattene, Fitto!
Sveglialo!
Fitto, vattene!
Ammazzatelo! Ammazzatelo! Ammazzatelo!
Se Don Ciccio viene a sapere che qualche famiglia ha mammucciato piccerino Pitandolini, malamente finisce. Avete capito, sì o no? Finisce a schifio. Lo capite? State attenti. Ascoltate che tu capisci con Mario Mosca. Ragione ave. Qualcuno viene ammocciato piccerino a Pitandolini. Lo consegnasse a Novaucio, che è meglio per tutti.
Questo. Vito, qua ci proviamo per te. Non ti scandare.
Presto.
Se qualcuno lo Novaucio ha ammocciato piccerino Pitandolini, lo consegnasse a Novaucio, che avrà tutta la stima di Don Francesco. Ascoltate a mia che è meglio. Pare che vi stavo parlando abbastanza chiaro. Ehi! Allora, dicevo che è meglio, un po' piccerino Vito, e a magari più coavo. Non vai a dire più niente. is your name?
What is your name?
Come on, son. What is your name?
Tuo nome? Vito Andolini from Corleone.
Corleone. Vito Corleone.
Okay. Over there. Next. Your name.
Tell him he has smallpox, quarantine 3 months.
Il dottore ha detto che hai il vaiolo, devi andare per 3 mesi in quarantena all'isola Ellis.
Vito Corleone.
There he is. This is him.
Oh, hey, did they ever unfreeze Walt Disney? Unfortunately.
Welcome back, Mr. Disney.
Are the Jews gone yet?
No.
Put me back in.
First the money started going, and now everyone's getting laid off work. They took our jobs! They took our jobs!
Meg, I promise I'll do better at this job than I did on the SATs. Come on. Do math.
Too many people get away with injustice, like the folks you meet in those Louisiana swamps.
Excuse me, do you know how to get to town?
Yeah, it's back the way you came.
Can we get some salami and...
Brian, let me handle this. Scusi, babidi-boopy? Che cosa?
Peter, what are you doing?
Speaking Italian. Babidi-boopy? Babidi-boopity-babidi-babidi.
Peter, you can't speak Italian just because you have a mustache.
Boopity-bapa. Boopa-beepy-boopa, bapa-beepy-bapa.
Tu sei un pazzo! Va via da qui!
Boop-beepy-bapa.
Sono stanco di te!
When the Irish came, the city was in a fever. Since the time of the Great Famine, they'd come streaming off the boats. And they got a right warm welcome.
Go back to Ireland, you dumb mitt!
You remember that, you frog Irish?
Get back in the boat, Patty!
I only came 2 hours downriver from Hellgate, but they all took me for an immigrant. Why not? There were 1,000 different accents in New York, and to the natives, you see, it was all the same.
Having his head to take the chill off your soul and the weight off your heart.
Welcome to America, son. Your long, arduous journey is over.
Go back to your own country.
Go Tammany!
America for Americans.
New York loved William Tweed. and hated him. And those of us trying to be thieves, we couldn't help but admire him.
Mr. Cutting, gentlemen, thank you for coming. It's an honor.
Mr. Tweed?
Sir, please. Excuse me. I think you're frightening them.
So? Don't mind him. He used to be an Irishman.
Ah, the 5 Points. Murderer's Alley. Brickbat Mansion. The gates of hell.
In this vile place, look upon the face of this poor child. She lives in squalor, in this God-forsaken den of vice and misery behind me.
Every year the reformers came, every year the Points got worse. As if it liked being dirty.
Degraded men and women.
We're all good to go! Move! The Reverend wants you out of here!
Come on, you fool! Resurrection will spring from the filthy depths to which these miserable creatures have fallen. In God, they will find their true home.
You may or may not know, Bill, that every day I go down to the waterfront with hot soup for the Irish as they come ashore. Part of building a political base.
I've noticed you there. You may have noticed me.
Indeed I have, throwing torrents of pavers and withering abuse on every single person who steps off those boats.
If only I had the guns, Mr. Tweed, I'd shoot each and every one of them before they set foot on American soil. Mulberry Street, and Worth, Cross, and Orange, and Little Water. Each of the 5 points is a finger. When I close my hand, it becomes a fist. And any time that I wish, I can turn it against you.
I understand, but we're talking about different things. I'm talking about civic duty. Responsibilities we owe to the people. Schools and hospitals, sewers and utilities, street construction, repairs and sweeping, business licenses, saloon licenses.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protector against the snares and the wickedness of the devil.
Streetcars, ferries, rubbish disposal. There's a power of money to be made in this city, Bill. With your help, the people must be made to understand that all these things are best kept within what I like to call the Tammany family, which is why I'm talking about an alliance between our two great organizations.
They're talking about muscle work.
That too. Muscle to match our spirit.
You own the crushers, get them to do it.
The police? Oh no, Jesus, no. The appearance of the law must be upheld, especially while it's being broken.
I am going to start with local politics today, specifically with one of America's greatest inventions, the urban political machine. So a political machine is basically an organization that works to win elections so that it can exercise power. The most famous political machine was New York City's Tammany Hall, which dominated Democratic Party politics in the late 19th century, survived until the 20th, and is keenly associated with corruption. Oh, it's already time for the mystery document? This is highly unorthodox, Stan. Well, the rules here are simple. I guess the author of the mystery document, I'm usually wrong, and I get shocked with the shock pen. All right, let's see what we got here. My party's in power in the city, and it's going to undertake a lot of public improvements. Well, I'm tipped off, say, that they're going to lay out a new park at a certain place, and I buy up all the land I can in the neighborhood. Then the board of this or that makes its plan public, and there's a rush to get my land, which nobody cared particular for before. Ain't it perfectly honest to charge a good price and make a profit on my investment and foresight? Of course it is. That's honest graft. Stan, I know this one. It's about machine politics. It's from New York. It doesn't say it's from New York, but it is because it is George Plunkett. Yes! How do you like them apples? Oh, you want to know the name of the book? It's Plunkett of Tammany Hall. Stan, transition me back to the desk with a libertage, please. Plunkett became famous for writing a book describing the way that New York City's government actually worked, but he was a small fish compared with the most famous shark-like machine politician of the day, William Boss Tweed, seen here with a head made of money. Boss Tweed basically ran New York in the late 1860s and early 1870s, and his greatest feat of swindling helps explain how the machine system worked. It revolved around the then-new county courthouse that now houses the New York City Department of Education. Building the courthouse was initially estimated to cost around $250,000, but ended up costing $13 million by the time it was finished in 1871. Included in that cost was a bill of $180,000 for 3 tables and 40 chairs, $1.5 million for lighting fixtures, and $41,000 for brooms and cleaning supplies. A plasterer received $500,000 for his initial job and then $1 million to repair his shoddy work. The standard kickback in these situations was that Tammany Hall received $2 for every $1 received by the contractor. That may seem like a bad deal for contractors, but remember, that plasterer still got to keep $500,000, which is worth about $9 million in today's money. Now, of course, that makes it sound like political machines were pure evil, especially if you were a taxpayer footing the bill for that courthouse. But machines also provided valuable services to immigrants and other poor people in cities. As Plunkett explained, Tammany could help families in need. I don't ask whether they are Republicans or Democrats, and I don't refer them to the Charity Organization Society, which would investigate their case in a month or two and decide they were worthy of help about the time they are dead from starvation. I just get quarters for them, buy clothes for them if their clothes were burned up, and fix them up until they get things running again. In return for this help, Tammany expected votes so that they could stay in power. Staying in power meant control of city jobs as well as city contracts. Plunkett claimed to know every big employer in the district, and in the whole city for that matter, and they ain't in the habit of saying no to me when I ask them for a job. But with all the corruption, sometimes even that wasn't enough. Fortunately, Tammany politicians could always fall back on fraud. Tammany found bearded men to vote, then took them to the barber to shave off the beard, but left the mustache so that they could vote a second time, and then they would shave off the stash so they could vote for a third. And then, of course, there was always violence and intimidation. By the end of the century, a Tammany regular lamented the good old days when, quote, "It was wonderful to see my men slug the opposition to preserve the sanctity of the ballot."
Fireman and one-time chairmaker from the Lower East Side. There had never been anyone quite like William M. Tweed. Over 6 feet tall and nearly 300 pounds, he was surprisingly nimble and graceful on his feet. Caricatured by his Republican opponents as a vulgar, hard-drinking Irishman, he was in fact a fourth-generation Scots Protestant, unfailingly courteous and nearly teetotal. He was also a superb politician who took care of his mainly immigrant constituency, providing jobs for the unemployed, coal in winter, and orphanages, hospitals, and shelters for the poor.
He was one of the first people who saw the power of mass politics in the cities. And for all his thievery, there was the recognition of mobilizing this mass of people to some political end. I think he's not remembered for that. He's remembered for the $50 million that he stole, which if you wanted to get the equivalent today, multiply times 10.
Accelerating New York's already explosive growth still further, Tweed and his associates brazenly siphoned off staggering sums from the hundreds of city projects under their control, and helped robber barons like Jay Gould and Jim Fisk make off with still more. There were lucrative contracts for grateful builders, who happily paid Tammany's leaders enormous cash kickbacks to get them. There were thousands of jobs for Tammany's loyal constituents, who gratefully voted Tammany's leaders back in power. New York's upper classes, meanwhile, professed to be appalled, but quietly looked the other way as real estate values in the city skyrocketed. It all worked like a machine, a political machine, and no one knew how that machine worked better than William Tweed, who by 1870 had concentrated more power in himself than anyone in the city's history.